quarantine is here, and I had a lot of time on my hands. So, I decided to start watching One Piece. Keyword there is watching, so no, I am not reading the manga of One Piece, because I, personally, don't enjoy the medium of manga as much. Instead, I watch the anime. I am aware of the really bad pacing issues in the future, so I will switch to One Piece, which is pretty much the better version of the One Piece anime in the future. I will be going arc by arc in this video, starting with Romance Dawn up until Alabasta. With that out of the way, let's get started. Romance Dawn introduces both Luffy and Zoro, which are the two most iconic characters of One Piece. And this arc is able to showcase the personalities and goals of these two characters really well. Luffy, who is a caring and ambitious pirate, wants to be the Pirate King. And Zoro, the strong but kind bounty hunter, wants to become the strongest swordsman. This arc also introduced some noteworthy characters, like Alvida, Helmeppo, and Morgan, who serve to be the first few villains that Luffy encounters. It also introduces Kobe into the series, and for me, Kobe is to the Marines as Luffy is to the pirates. So I am expecting an encounter in the future, and I really look forward for that to happen. Another character introduced was Shanks, and I didn't quite know what to think of him so far. I like the sacrifice that he made for Luffy, but I want to know much more about him. Overall, I found Romance Dawn to be a good starting point to the series, and left me wanting more. In Loguetown, we fully got introduced to the character known as Nami. Nami fit the bill of exactly what a pirate was supposed to be, treasure hungry, and this arc focused heavily on that concept. Characters like Buggy the Clown share the concept of treasure with Nami, which is gold and money. Mayor Boodle, on the other hand, saw his treasure as the town. Shushu saw his treasure as his home, and Luffy saw treasure in his straw hat. I enjoyed how this concept was portrayed in this arc, and I also enjoyed the fights that were present in this arc. Another Devil Fruit user was finally introduced in Buggy, and I found him to be fascinating, while the other characters on Buggy's crew didn't intrigue me quite as much. Loguetown was a good arc for me, and it solidified the beliefs that the Straw Hat crew had. Syrup Village introduced us to another Straw Hat, which was Ussop, and to be honest, I didn't quite like him as much. I thought out of everyone, Ussop had one of the worst designs, and had one of the worst personalities. I did enjoy some parts of Syrup Village, like Ussop telling lies to cheer Kaya up, and Django being the most interesting new character that was introduced. Captain Kuro being the main villain didn't really do much for me, but I did like the part on why he fixes his glass differently. The arc ends with Luffy and his crew finally getting a good ship, named the Going Merry. Although Syrup Village isn't as good as the two arcs before it, I still was able to find some enjoyment in this arc. Baratie was the most enjoyment that I have had so far with One Piece. The introduction of Sanji was absolutely amazing. When the idea of a chef joining the crew first came up, I was expecting a weak background character that could provide some moral support. Sanji goes way beyond that. He is able to withhold his own and more, which was shown in him defeating Full Body. Sanji's fighting style I thought was also interesting, as he decides to fully focus on his legs for combat, as he thinks that the hands should be left for cooking. His desire for women was also presented. Another introduction which I thought was amazing was Mihawk. The way that he was portrayed as being able to defeat Don Krieg's ship so easily and being so strong, and then just out of nowhere he showed up, shocked me. His encounter with Zoro opened mine and Zoro's eyes to the power that other people have in this series. The way Zoro handles his crushing defeat was very warrior-like, not wanting to be humiliated and trying his best until the very end. Zeph was also introduced in this arc, and much like Shanks did to Luffy, Zeph sacrificed a limb to save Sanji's life. Other characters like Don Krieg and Gin, who although were alright, were overshadowed by way more interesting characters. The fight between Luffy and Don Krieg was also handled well, with Don Krieg having a ton of weapons at his disposal, while Luffy only having his Devil Fruit powers. Nami was also seen stealing the ship, which led to a good transition for the next arc. Overall, Baratie was definitely the best arc that One Piece had at this point, as it provided a lot of badass and world-developing moments. Arlong Park came, and it certainly made its mark for me. Nami's backstory was the best one that I had seen so far, and it really made me understand and feel for what she had experienced. Bellamar was a great role model for Nami and Nojiko, a single woman trying her best to give her daughters a life that they can enjoy. Nojiko getting her own tattoo so that Nami wouldn't feel alone was a great symbol of their sisterly love. Arlong was a vicious and proud villain of the arc. He made everyone know that they are beneath him, and that they could do nothing about it. The moment Arlong tried to steal Nami's money was heart-crushing, as we know how hard Nami has worked for their village to be free, and that all was just taken away from her. Aside from that, there were a ton more amazing moments. Nami stabbing her own arm as she gets disgusted by the thought of her and Arlong being associates. Luffy giving Nami the straw hat, which basically told Nami that Luffy would handle the situation. Arlong revealing Zoro's wounds and seeing the amount of injuries that he had left Arlong wondering how a human could still be alive with those injuries. Ussop using tactics and materials to finally be able to defeat a strong opponent. And finally, Luffy defeating Arlong and raising his hand above all of the rubble. Gunzo, Yusaku, Johnny, Hachan, and Kurobi also provided some good support to the arc. Arlong Park was definitely an arc to be remembered. Loguetown was able to give each of the Straw Hats great development for themselves. I especially liked Zoro finding 2 more swords for him to wield, and his dynamics with Tashigi was entertaining to watch. Luffy seeing the place that Goldie Roger was executed felt very symbolic to me, like both of them smiling at the brink of death. Buggy and his crew with Elvida reappeared in this arc, and to be honest, I did not like the way that Luffy survived. It felt like Luffy didn't do anything and was instead saved without doing much. Smoker was introduced in this arc, and when his devil fruit was shown, I immediately thought that it was OP. We see more of this type like Ace and Crocodile in the future, but even with the water weakness, I still do think this type of devil fruit might be too powerful. Dragon was also introduced, but I couldn't really understand him in his small appearance. Luffy's bounty was also told in this arc, which was 30 million. It made Mihawks and Shanks meet, and I found that to be interesting. Overall, I thought Loguetown was a good cool-down arc, where the Straw Hats had some time to have some fun. Reverse Mountain was interesting when I first saw it, where the Straw Hats had to go up a mountain where the water made no sense to enter the Grand Line. Crocus and Laboon were the first people we meet in the Grand Line. Crocus had a fun and laid-back personality, but when Laboon's backstory was told, I actually felt sorry for a whale. Who would have thought? We also see Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine, who I thought were just irrelevant characters in the future. But as we know, Vivi becomes a major part of the story later on. Reverse Mountain was a good introduction to the Grand Line, and it played its role well. Whiskey Peak was surprising for me when I first saw it. An island where pirates are loved is definitely unusual, and the eventual reveal that it was a trap came as a shock for me, as I initially thought that this was just the culture of the Grand Line. Baroque works were introduced alongside Mr. Five and Miss Valentine, who I thought had unique designs and devil fruits. Zoro just tearing through a lot of the Baroque works employees was entertaining to watch, and it made me realize how strong Zoro is compared to the others. Though I didn't enjoy the Luffy vs Zoro fight, it kind of felt pointless to me, and made both Zoro and Luffy feel like absolute dumbasses. Igaram and Karu were also introduced, as a journey of Princess Vivi to Alabasta finally started. We also got to see Miss All Sunday with her unique devil fruit, and sort of trying to help the Straw Hats. Whiskey Peak for me was a good stopover to set up future arcs. Little Garden was the first really unique island, with it being a prehistoric land. Dory and Baratie's long duel was compelling, as both of them were strong and had charming personalities. The first part of this arc was really good for me. The second half was not as much. I liked the side villains like Mr. Five and Miss Valentine coming back, but the main villain, which was Mr. 3, was a little too much for me. But I did like the contrast of his character to his partner, which was Miss Golden Week, who had a very unique power. Ussop had someone to look up to in this arc, as he strives to be like the giants. Zoro being nonchalant and casually stating that he was going to cut his legs was a cool, funny moment for me. Overall, Little Garden was a good new atmosphere to the series. Drum Island was a needed island, as Nami was feeling very sick because of something that happened to her. Wapol was introduced, but I didn't really see him as someone who was that threatening, and I think this played well for the series. Not every arc has to have a menacing villain. Luffy climbing up the mountain in very cold weather and carrying both Sanji and Nami was a powerful moment for Luffy as he continued to push on despite all of the troubles. Then we meet Chopper, who was hesitant to really get to know the Straw Hats, as he had a troubled past with Dr. Hiriluk. Hiriluk's constancy to help everyone was charming, and his happiness to know that everyone was safe despite being tricked showed his passion in being a doctor. Dr. Hiriluk and Dr. Kuria's similar goodbye to Chopper was heartwarming, as both of these doctors loved Chopper so much that he didn't want to say goodbye. Drum Island was a sad and enjoyable arc that introduced us to our Dr. Chopper. Alabasta, which was the first massive arc of the series, was great. The journey of the Straw Hats throughout this big island was entertaining to watch. The brother of Luffy, Ace, was a shocking but welcome new addition to the series. I personally thought that Luffy had no family, so I did not think he had a brother. Ace was powerful, but he was unlike his brother Luffy, who just wanted to have fun most of the time. Smoker and Tashigi appear again in this arc, and I really grew to love these two. They were always trying their best, and they did what they thought would be right, despite knowing that there would be punishment. We also got fully introduced to Crocodile, who was a menacing and rather smart villain. Crocodile was able to defeat Luffy twice, and the perseverance of Luffy was shown, as he always tried and tried to beat Crocodile until he finally did. Sanji had an amazing moment as Mr. Prince, and him just outsmarting Crocodile in his laid-back fashion was amazing to watch. Sanji also had a fight with Mr. Two, which was basically a foot fight between the two. Zoro also had an amazing moment, where he was able to show his own perseverance, as he finally was able to cut steel, and he could control what he would or would not cut. Nami's fight was also interesting, as unlike Sanji, Luffy, and Zoro, Nami had to use her intelligence to be able to defeat her opponent. The same could be said for both Chopper and Ussop, where they were outclassed in terms of strength. But in the end, they actually beat them. Koza being shot in the back was shocking to me, as I really did think that the war would stop. A side character that I really liked was Pell. Him just casually coming to the clock tower and talking about Vivi's past until he finally took the bomb and sacrificed himself was amazing. Vivi's constant screaming for the war to stop was portrayed well, as despite all of her efforts, the people fighting could not hear her. The Straw Hats' eventual silent goodbye to Vivi was wonderful to watch, as each of the Straw Hats raised their mark as a sign of goodbye. Mr. Two, or Bon Clay, was the MVP of that moment, as he sacrificed himself and his crew so that Luffy could advance his ship. Miss All Sunday reappears as Nico Robin, and seemingly a new Straw Hat. I really would like the addition of her to the crew, as just a little exchange that she had with the Straw Hat when Indigo and Mary was one of my favorite sequences in the series, and she plays off all of them well. Overall, Alabasta was an amazing complex arc, as each of the Straw Hats get their time to shine. Now for my overall thoughts. I really am liking One Piece so far, especially the world building and the character development. Some of the fighting was not on par with some of the other aspects, but they still were able to convey the story they wanted. I did find some moments a little too ridiculous, but I grew used to it as time went on, and the more serious moments stuck in my head way more. I liked both the first and the second OP of One Piece, and the fourth ending is an absolute smooth banger. Now time for my rankings of the Straw Hats. Number 1, Sanji. Number 2, Luffy. Number 3, Zoro. Number 4, Nami. Number 5, Chopper. Number 6, Ussop. And number 7, Vivi. I'm still undecided on Robin. Here are some of my favorite non-Straw Hat characters: Mihawk, Shanks, Tashigi, Crocodile, Bon Clay, Pell, Ace, Smoker, Laboon, Dr. Hiriluk, Arlong, Logical, and Miss Valentine. And finally, here are my rankings of the arcs. The best arc is Arlong Park, followed by Baratie, followed by Alabasta, then Drum Island, then Loguetown, then Reverse Mountain, then Orangetown, then Little Garden, then Whiskey Peak, then Roman's Dawn, then Syrup Village. And that does it for the video. I hope that you enjoyed and that you come back for more. Sayonara.